At least that's what the frantic voicemail from Lila said. My daughter-in-law's voice cracked through my phone speaker at 2 a.m., words tumbling over each other about Ethan collapsing, ambulance, emergency room, hurry, please hurry. The panic in her voice had the unmistakable quality of manufactured chaos, like a carefully rehearsed performance meant to provoke the maximum response. Even so, I couldn't afford the luxury of hesitation. Every second felt like a hammer striking my chest. I threw on yesterday's shirt, skipped breakfast, skipped the little rituals that usually grounded me in the morning. My shoes hit the floor and I was gone, grabbing the keys to my car in one smooth motion, not even bothering to look back at the bedroom, at the quiet house that would greet me when I returned, emptier now than it had ever been. The streets were deserted. Even in a city that never truly sleeps, the small hours of the morning turn the asphalt into mirrors, reflecting the distant neon glow of streetlights, the occasional shuttered storefront. I drove fast, too fast, but with careful control, decades of reflexes from my years as a private investigator kicking in. My hazards flashed a warning to the world, but the world was asleep. My mind raced faster than the engine, cataloging every possible scenario. Heart attack, stroke, drug reaction, accident. Every one of them terrifying. I rehearsed how I would burst into the ER, demand answers, and confront whoever was responsible for my son's suffering. Mercy General loomed ahead, a sterile monolith, its windows illuminated against the pre-dawn gloom, each glowing pane promising both hope and dread. I parked hastily, across 2 spaces, adrenaline jacking through my veins, and ran. My shoes pounded the asphalt, echoed off the walls, a relentless rhythm matching the panicked beats of my heart. The automatic doors slid open with a clinical whisper, and I was inside. The waiting room was a cavern of muted despair. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, bouncing off linoleum floors worn smooth by years of footsteps that carried everyone's fears and griefs. No Lila, no Chloe, just the tired faces of night shift staff, nurses with tired eyes, doctors hunched over charts, custodians with their quiet, deliberate movements, and the faint, antiseptic tang that stung my nose. I swallowed hard, trying to quell the wave of fear that had already gripped me. "Ethan Harlan," I said to the nurse at the desk, my voice brittle but carrying a weight that demanded attention. "My son, he came in by ambulance." She typed rapidly without looking up, the soft clicks of the keyboard filling the space like metronome ticks, marking out my rising panic. "Room 412, 4th floor, but visiting hours." I was already moving toward the elevators before she could finish. Every second counted. The thought of him lying in pain, struggling, alone, propelled me faster. The elevator ride felt like it stretched on for minutes, each floor a slow drumbeat in my chest. When the doors finally slid open, the 4th floor hallway stretched before me, unnervingly long and too quiet, the kind of silence that hides all manner of secrets. Room 412 sat at the far end. My footsteps echoed, squeaking against the linoleum, each squeak a harsh punctuation to my mounting anxiety. Through the small window in the door, I could see Ethan in the bed, monitors blinking rhythmically, the IV line trailing from his arm like some sinister lifeline. He looked pale, too pale, the kind of pale that makes your stomach knot with dread. My hand shot toward the door handle. "Don't!" The voice came from behind me, sharp, commanding, full of authority and fear. I turned to see a nurse I didn't recognize, maybe 35, dark hair pulled back tight, eyes that had seen too much and judged even more. "What?" "Don't go in there." Her voice dropped to a whisper, almost conspiratorial. "Hide. Your son's life depends on it." I stared at her, incredulous. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Trust me." She glanced down the hall, eyes flicking with a sharpness that hinted at danger. "Supply closet, 2 doors down. Now." Something about her demeanor made me move without question. After 20 years as a private investigator, reading people became second nature. You learn to recognize fear when it's genuine, recognize the subtleties of deception, recognize urgency when it can't be faked. This woman was terrified, and her terror carried the weight of truth. I slipped into the supply closet, the door clicking softly behind me. Metal shelves lined with gauze, syringes, and sterile packets surrounded me, the air thick with the sterile, faintly chemical scent of disinfectant and latex. The small ventilation grate near the top of the door gave me a narrow window into the hallway, enough to see the key moments, enough to hear crucial words. Voices approached. Female, confident, with a calm veneer that betrayed practiced manipulation. He's still out? That was Lila. Should be for another hour. A man's voice, older, measured, with the kind of professionalism you hear in boardrooms and courtrooms. The sedative I had them add to his IV will keep him under. I pressed myself closer to the grate, holding my breath. Through the narrow view, I saw them stop outside Ethan's room. Lila was smiling, her eyes glinting with calculated triumph. Beside her was a man in an expensive suit, gray hair, briefcase in hand. A lawyer, by the look of him, the kind whose presence alone makes you want to punch the nearest wall. "And you're certain about the documents?" Lila asked. "Signed and notarized last week," the lawyer said. "Power of attorney transfers to you the moment he's declared incompetent. With his father's documented history of paranoia and instability, the judge will grant conservatorship within days." "What about Chloe?" Lila asked. "Your sister-in-law understands the arrangement. 50-50 split once we liquidate Rob's assets. The security firm, the retirement accounts, the house. Everything." "Chloe, my daughter." "And Damien?" "He's already started the paperwork on the property transfers. By end of week, your father-in-law will own nothing. Best part? Legally, there's nothing he can do. Once you have conservatorship, you control everything." Lila laughed, a sound devoid of warmth, metallic, triumphant. 20 years of listening to that man lecture us about responsibility and hard work, about earning what you have. Now we take it all. "The old bastard won't even see it coming," the lawyer said, matter of fact, almost gleeful. They walked into Ethan's room. The door clicked shut with a hollow finality that echoed in the hallway. I stood in the dark supply closet, hands shaking, not from fear, though fear was there, but from a deep, raw, visceral rage. Rage at the betrayal, at the cold calculation, at the audacity. My son, my daughter, colluding with my daughter-in-law to strip me of everything I had built, to erase decades of effort and integrity in one slick, cruel maneuver. The nurse appeared at the closet door, her face tight with apprehension. "You heard?" "Every word," I said, my voice flat, controlled, cold as steel. "Who are you?" "Sarah. I've been working this floor for 6 months. Your daughter-in-law has been bringing that lawyer here for weeks. Planning. I heard them tonight and decided someone should warn you." "Is my son really sick?" "He's fine. They gave him something to make him drowsy, had him admitted under false pretenses. This whole thing is a setup." I stepped out of the closet, adrenaline sharpening my senses. How long have they been planning this? At least 3 months that I know of, maybe longer. 3 months. While I had been hosting Sunday dinners, making small talk with Lila, sharing stories with Ethan about his work, mentoring Chloe through her first apartment. While I had been trusting them. Every word, every gesture, every smile, a carefully constructed lie. All of it. Lies. "You have family?" Sarah asked, her voice gentle, sympathetic. "Just them," I said. "I'm sorry." I looked at Ethan's door again. Through the small window, I could see Lila standing beside his bed, phone pressed to her ear, a smug smile curving her lips. She didn't know I was there. She couldn't know. "Don't be," I said, more to myself than to anyone else. My mind was already calculating, strategizing. They thought they were safe. They thought they had outmaneuvered me. But they had underestimated one crucial thing. I don't forgive. And I don't forget. The air seemed to thrum with possibility. Every betrayal, every lie, every misstep they had made in their careful planning was a thread I could pull. And when I did, it would unravel everything they had built in the shadows. I didn't just see red, I saw clarity. I saw the path forward, jagged and dangerous, yes, but mine to navigate. I drew a slow breath, steadying my shaking hands. The fear, the panic, the betrayal, it all sharpened my instincts, honed them into precision tools. My eyes scanned the hallway again, memorizing angles, noting the positions of cameras, the likely exits. I was already mentally plotting my next steps. If they wanted war, they would get it. But it would be on my terms, exacting and unrelenting. A soft creak in the hallway made me freeze. Lila shifted, her attention fully on the phone. The lawyer's briefcase clicked against the floor as he adjusted his stance. The room was silent, except for Ethan's slow, measured breathing, the steady beep of the monitors. I moved closer to the grate, heart pounding, mind racing. Every word they had spoken was ammunition now. Every plan they had hatched was a blueprint for counteraction. I could dismantle their scheme piece by piece, like a master locksmith opening a safe, and when I did, the truth would hit harder than any betrayal ever could. I touched the metal shelves around me, feeling the cold, clinical surfaces beneath my fingers. Supplies, tools, implements of healing, all ordinary objects imbued now with the extraordinary possibility of action. I was no longer just a father rushing to a hospital. I was a predator, silent, observant, armed with knowledge, and fueled by the rawest of human emotions. Outside the door, Lila laughed again. The sound grated on me like fingernails on chalkboard. My mind flashed to every Sunday dinner, every forced smile, every moment I had extended trust that had been abused. I clenched my fists, white-knuckled, letting that anger fuel me, sharpen me. 20 years, I whispered under my breath, a vow as much as a statement. They're about to learn something about me they should have known already. They're about to learn that the man they think they can manipulate, the father they think they can outwit, doesn't just forgive. And he sure as hell doesn't forget. The hallway seemed to hold its breath, the world narrowing to that single moment, that single truth. I was ready, and the reckoning was coming. Slowly, deliberately, I prepared to step out. Not into fear, but into action, where betrayal meets justice. And every lie is exposed under the harsh, unforgiving light of truth. I waited, coiled and patient, as the night carried on, knowing that when I moved, the world would change. I could feel it in my bones, the quiet before the storm, the stillness that precedes the strike. And when the time came, Lila, the lawyer, my so-called family, they would see what it means to awaken the man they sought to destroy. They would see that I am no mere victim. I am the reckoning. And Ethan, my son, would be safe. Because I am his father. And nothing, not greed, not betrayal, not deception, would ever change that. The clock ticked, the monitors beeped, and the first light of dawn began to pierce the windows at the far end of the hallway. I was ready. I had always been ready. And this time, they would learn the cost of underestimating me. The game had begun. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. I needed to get out of the hospital without being seen. The corridors were quiet, sterile, and unnervingly long, the hum of fluorescent lights, the only sound to accompany our hurried footsteps. Sarah led me down a back stairwell, the kind of hidden artery used by staff to move unseen through the building. The concrete steps were chipped and worn, the faint smell of disinfectant mingling with the faint metallic tang of old pipes. Every echo of our footsteps felt amplified in the stairwell, each creak a potential giveaway to any attentive observer. We passed the cafeteria kitchen, where night workers were prepping breakfast for the first wave of morning patients. The smell of overcooked eggs mixed with industrial-strength bleach, a nauseating combination that only made the urgency of my mission feel more surreal. I kept my head low, focusing on the rhythm of our movement, aware that any hesitation could be disastrous. Through a maintenance corridor that smelled like industrial cleaner and damp concrete, we finally emerged near the employee parking area. Rain had started, a light drizzle that blurred the overhead lights, reflecting off wet asphalt. The rhythmic patter of raindrops against the car roofs sounded almost like a countdown, marking the time I had to get away unnoticed. "Where's your car?" Sarah asked, her voice low but firm. "Main lot. Front." "That's no good. They'll see you," she said, scanning the area with sharp eyes, as though tracking invisible surveillance cameras, plotting our route with military precision. She reached into the pocket of her scrubs and pulled out a set of keys. "Take my car. Honda Civic, blue, 2 rows over." "I can't," I started, instinctively resisting. I wasn't used to borrowing a stranger's car. "Yes, you can. I'll get a ride home. You need to disappear before they realize you were here." Her voice carried the weight of command. There was no room for argument. I took the keys, feeling the cool metal against my palm, the weight of the decision settling on me. "Why are you helping me?" "Because they're evil, and because someone should." She scribbled her number on a scrap of paper and pressed it into my hand. "Call me when you're clear. We'll figure out how to get my car back." I found the Civic, parked as she said, droplets of rain tracing rivulets down the windows. Sliding behind the wheel, I pulled my hat low over my eyes, obscuring my face, and drove out of the lot, head down. Not a single vehicle followed, not even a hint of pursuit, but I kept glancing at the rearview mirror, every muscle coiled, ready for the unexpected. By the time I reached my apartment in downtown, the sky was shifting from inky black to a slate gray, the first hints of dawn creeping between the buildings. I parked 2 blocks away, choosing distance over convenience, and walked the rest of the way, keeping to shadows, letting instinct guide me. This was the life I'd trained for, the life I'd built over decades of investigating, observing, surviving. The building itself was a converted warehouse, a relic of industrial ambition now repurposed for urban chic. Industrial windows, exposed brick walls, and ductwork crawling along the ceilings gave it a deliberately unfinished look that commanded a high rent. It was the kind of place where appearances suggested poverty, while the reality was far more sophisticated. I climbed to the 4th floor, my studio apartment waiting like a calm eye in the storm. Minimalist furniture, stark surfaces, everything functional, everything in its place. My life happened elsewhere, at the office, in the field, in the moments where action mattered. I made coffee, the bitter aroma cutting through the rain-soaked memories of the hospital, and stood by the window watching the city wake. Streetlights flickered off as headlights carved ribbons of light through misty streets. Delivery trucks rumbled past, and the faint chatter of early commuters reached me from below, a world moving unconcerned while mine was unraveling. My phone buzzed, a text from Lila. "Dad, where are you? Ethan's asking for you at the hospital." I didn't respond. Another text, this one from Chloe. "Dad, we're worried. Are you okay? Please call." Yesterday, the concern in their words would have drawn me in, a soft reassurance amidst the chaos of life. Today, it made me want to throw the phone through the window. It was performative, calculated, the same strategy they had always used to mask their true intentions. Instead, I called the one person I trusted above all others. Bill, head of operations at Harlan Security, a man I had met 15 years ago on a surveillance job. Former military, disciplined, unflappable. The kind of man who knew when to speak and when silence was the most lethal weapon. "It's 6 in the morning," Bill answered, his voice still rough from sleep, layered with suspicion. "This better be good. I need you to dig into some financials." "Quietly," I said, cutting to the chase. "Whose?" "My kids." A pause, a hesitation that was almost audible even over the line. "You want to tell me why?" "They're trying to rob me blind. I need to know how deep it goes." Another pause. Then, in a tone that was both incredulous and alert, "I'll start today. Anything else?" "Yeah. Monitor any legal filings with my name on them. Conservatorship proceedings, power of attorney transfers, anything that could be used to undermine me." "Jesus, Rob, what happened?" "Nothing yet, but it's about to." I hung up and turned to my laptop, a familiar ritual. The screens lit up, cascading lines of code and spreadsheets reflecting in my eyes. Time to do what I did best: investigate, uncover, expose. I started with Ethan. His social media showed the usual: photos of dinners with Lila, beach weekends, perfectly curated snapshots of success. But beneath the surface, using access I had from consulting on security systems for his company, I traced financial anomalies: large transfers, weekly, moving into an account I didn't recognize. Following the trail, I discovered the account belonged to Damian Reed, Ethan's college friend. Real estate developer, slick, arrogant, and someone I had met twice before and immediately distrusted. Chloe's records revealed similar manipulations. Money moved in patterns that defied explanation, expenses that far outstripped the income she claimed from her design firm. The pieces fell together. This wasn't a momentary lapse. It wasn't coincidence. They had been planning for months, lining up assets, constructing a narrative, waiting for the perfect time to strike. The lawyer's words from the hospital came back to me. Documented history of paranoia and instability. They were building a case, carefully layering evidence, testimony, and perception to make me appear unfit. Every conversation I'd had, every dinner they'd hosted, every concern they had feigned, each was a calculated move. Chloe's questions about my forgetfulness, Ethan suggesting anger management, the subtle prods into my mental state. Each one had been planting seeds, crafting a story that could be sold to a judge. Smart. Cruel, but smart. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, wary, but ready. "Harlan," I said. "Mr. Harlan, this is Carlton Sheffield. I represent your daughter-in-law in a family matter. I'd like to schedule a meeting." The voice carried the same controlled smoothness I had heard at the hospital, the same arrogance that comes with assuming the upper hand. "I'm listening," I said, every muscle tight, every instinct alert. "There are concerns about your mental fitness to manage your affairs. Your family wants to help. If you cooperate with a voluntary evaluation, we can keep this discreet. No court involvement." "And if I don't cooperate?" "Then we proceed through official channels, which would be unfortunate. Public record, potentially embarrassing." I let the words hang for a moment, tasting the bait. "I'll think about it." "Don't think too long, Mr. Harlan. Your family is worried." I hung up, staring at the phone. They were moving fast, expecting me to cave, expecting compliance. They didn't know me. They didn't know the years I had spent watching, calculating, surviving. They had assumed familiarity and underestimated experience. I leaned back, sipping coffee that had gone cold, letting the morning cityscape settle in around me. The rain had stopped, leaving streets slick and reflective, a mirror to the chaos I was untangling. Their plan was sophisticated, layered, but every action left a trace, every pattern a clue. I opened multiple windows on my laptop, diving deeper. Bank transfers, legal filings, property deeds, corporate records, emails, texts, phone records, social media cross-references. Every detail, every anomaly, every unexpected payment or message became a thread I could pull. The network of deceit they had woven was impressive, but not impervious. I paused at a particular set of transactions. Damian Reed's account linked to several shell entities, subtly connected to Ethan's transfers. A trail of money flowing like veins through an unseen system, each step carefully designed to look legitimate. My mind cataloged each connection, each potential leverage point, each vulnerability. I pulled up Chloe's patterns. Smaller, less obvious, but telling. Frequent ATM withdrawals, large credit card expenditures that contradicted reported income, transfers to offshore accounts. Both kids were meticulous, careful, and ruthlessly methodical, but careful and meticulous only delayed the inevitable. I ran my eyes across the screen, noting the meticulous coordination required to maintain such a scheme. They had underestimated the most important factor: me. I could see beyond numbers. I could see intent. They had thought my age and occasional irritability made me malleable. They had thought they could manipulate, intimidate, and outmaneuver a man who had spent a lifetime observing, analyzing, predicting. The city outside moved unconcerned, indifferent to the storm gathering in my apartment. But inside, in the quiet of early morning, a plan began to form. A counterplan. Not a rash reaction, not an emotional outburst, but a calculated, deliberate strategy designed to expose, neutralize, and reclaim control. And I would do it all without them ever realizing that the game had changed. They thought they had won. They had not even close. 2 weeks later, I got the invitation. Lila's sister was getting married. Big ceremony at the Riverside Hotel, reception hall for 200 guests. Family invited, of course. I RSVP'd yes. Ethan called the day before the wedding. "Dad, you're really coming?" "Wouldn't miss it. We need to talk about things. We'll talk at the wedding." I hung up before he could press further. The Riverside Hotel sat on the waterfront, all glass and steel and architectural ambition. I arrived 20 minutes early, dressed in my best suit, dark gray, crisp white shirt, looking respectable, stable. The reception hall buzzed with activity. Round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of hydrangeas, a DJ setting up near the dance floor. Guests milled around, champagne glasses already in hand. I spotted Ethan near the bar. Lila stood beside him, stunning in a green dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She saw me first. Her expression flickered. Surprise, then calculation, then a forced smile. "Rob!" She came over, arms open like we were old friends. "We weren't sure you'd make it." "Wouldn't miss family." Ethan approached. He looked uncomfortable. "Good. Dad, how are you?" "Never better." Chloe appeared from somewhere, her boyfriend trailing behind. My daughter hugged me. I let her. Felt her tense when I didn't immediately hug back. "You look good, Dad," she said. "Thanks." The ceremony started. I sat in the back row, watched the bride and groom exchange vows. Standard stuff, forever and always, in sickness and health. The words felt hollow. Afterward, during the reception, I made my rounds, talked to distant relatives, Lila's parents, friendly, engaged, normal. I was standing by the dessert table when Lila approached me alone. "Rob, can we talk? Privately?" "Right here is fine." She glanced around. People were watching. She smiled, keeping it light. "It's about your apartment. The lease renewal is coming up. Ethan and I were thinking we might take it over. It's a great location and—" "No." "Sorry?" I said no. "It's my apartment." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes went cold. "Well, we'll need the keys anyway, to start looking at options." "That's not happening." "Rob." She lowered her voice. "Don't make this difficult." "I'm not making anything difficult. You're asking for something that isn't yours." She stepped closer. Her voice dropped to barely audible. "Give me the keys, or I'll make sure everyone here knows exactly how unstable you've become." I smiled. Actually smiled. "Try it." Her hand came up fast. The slap cracked across my face loud enough that conversations nearby stopped. People turned, Lila's voice rose, theatrical. How dare you speak to me that way, after everything we've done for you? The room went silent, every eye on us. Ethan rushed over. Dad, what did you say to her? I said no. No to what? She wanted my apartment keys. I declined. Lila's face flushed. He's being completely unreasonable. We're just trying to help him, and he accuses us of… I didn't accuse you of anything, I said calmly. I simply said no. Chloe joined the cluster now, along with several guests. The bride's father looked annoyed. This wasn't part of the plan for his daughter's perfect day. Dad, just give her the keys, Chloe said. It's not a big deal. It's my home. It's absolutely a big deal. You're being paranoid, Ethan said. There it was. The word, paranoid, building their case, even now. Am I? Carlton Sheffield materialized from the crowd. The lawyer. Mr. Harlan, perhaps we should step outside. I'm fine right here. You're causing a scene. Your client slapped me. That's the scene. Lila's eyes filled with tears. Performative. Perfect. He's sick. Can't you all see that? We've been trying to get him help, but he refuses. Murmurs rippled through the watching guests. Poor family. Difficult father. Such a shame. I pulled out my phone, made a call, one number, let it ring twice, then hung up. What are you doing? Ethan asked. Making a point. The room settled into uncomfortable tension. People didn't know whether to leave or stay. The DJ played quiet background music. Awkward. Then the main doors opened. Alex walked in. I'd met him 3 years ago on a job involving corporate espionage. He'd been working security for the other side. After that case wrapped, he'd given me his card. Said if I ever needed someone who could handle complicated situations, call. Alex stood 6'3", maybe 240, all of it muscle. Shaved head, dark suit, the kind of presence that made rooms go quiet. He scanned the space, found me, walked over. Rob. Thanks for coming. What do you need? Every eye in the hall was on us now. Lila looked confused. Ethan looked worried. Carlton Sheffield's professional composure cracked just slightly. I need you to stand here, I said. That's all. Alex nodded, took position beside me, said nothing, just existed. The psychological effect was immediate. People stepped back. The energy shifted. I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't the crazy old man being ganged up on by his family. Who is that? Lila hissed. A friend. This is insane, Ethan said. You brought hired muscle to a wedding? No, I brought a friend to a family event. There's a difference. Chloe grabbed my arm. Dad, please. You're embarrassing yourself. I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. 25 years old. I'd paid for her education. Helped with her first apartment, been there for every birthday, every accomplishment, and she'd been planning to rob me. Let go of my arm, Chloe. She did, looked hurt. Another performance. Carlton Sheffield cleared his throat. Mr. Harlan, I think it's best if you leave. This isn't the time or place. I agree. This isn't the time or place. That's why I'm not discussing my finances, my property, or my mental health at a wedding. Your client started this conversation, not me. By refusing a simple request, Lila said, tears still streaming. A set of keys. That's all I asked for. You asked for access to my home. That's not simple. That's never simple. The bride's father finally stepped in. Perhaps everyone should take a moment. Cool down. This is my daughter's day. You're absolutely right, I said. I apologize for the disruption. I looked at Lila, at Ethan, at Chloe, at Carlton Sheffield. Let them see exactly what I was feeling. I'll leave, but understand something. All of you. I paused. Let it sink in. I know what you're doing. I know what you've planned, and I'm not going to let it happen. What are you talking about? Ethan said. Ask your wife. Ask your lawyer. Ask Damien while you're at it. I know about all of it. Carlton Sheffield's face went carefully blank. Professional mask. I turned to Alex. Let's go. We walked toward the exit. Behind us, chaos erupted. Voices rising, accusations, denials. Let them scramble. Outside, the night air felt clean. You need anything else? Alex asked. Not tonight, but soon. I'll call. Good luck, Rob. I don't need luck. I need evidence. I drove home. Parked. Sat in my car for a long time. The rage that had been building since the hospital felt focused now. Sharp. Useful. They wanted a fight. They were about to get one. Bill came through with the financials 3 days later. We met at my office, a small space downtown in a building that housed mostly insurance companies and bail bondsmen. You're not going to like this, Bill said, spreading printouts across my desk. Show me. The numbers told the story. Ethan had been moving money for 6 months. Small amounts at first, gradually increasing. Transfers to Damian Reed's real estate company, ostensibly for investment properties. But when Bill cross-referenced the properties, they didn't exist. Phantom real estate deals. Money laundering. Damian's been helping them hide assets, Bill explained. They move your money through his company, he takes a cut, sends it back to offshore accounts. Once they have control of your finances, they cash out and disappear. How much? So far, about 200 grand of theirs. But they're positioning to take everything. Your business, your retirement, the works, I'd estimate close to 3 million. 3 million, my entire life savings. What about Chloe? Bill flipped to another sheet. She's in deeper than your son. Been working with Damian longer. Actually introduced him to Ethan. She's the architect. My daughter. The architect of my destruction. There's more, Bill said. Carlton Sheffield isn't just a lawyer. He specializes in elder law, specifically questionable conservatorships. Got sanctioned twice by the bar. Still practicing because he's good at covering his tracks. They picked a professional. Yeah, and he's building a case. I found medical records requests, financial history pulls, even interviews with some of your former clients. They're compiling evidence of instability. I leaned back in my chair. So what's my play? Legally? File first. Beat them to the punch. Get a restraining order, freeze accounts, protect your assets. That's defensive. I want offensive. Bill looked at me. Rob, these are your kids. They stopped being my kids when they decided to rob me. Revenge isn't going to... This isn't revenge. It's justice. They made a choice. Now they live with consequences. Bill gathered the papers. What do you need? Everything you can find on Damian Reed. Business dealings, associates, anything that won't stand up to scrutiny. If he's helping them, he's dirty. I want to know how dirty. And your kids? Keep digging. Every transaction, every communication. I want a complete picture. Bill left. I sat in my office. The photo on my desk showed Ethan and Chloe as children. Summer vacation, Disney World. They were smiling. I was smiling. Happy family. I put the photo in a drawer. Sarah called that evening. How are you holding up? I'm good. I heard about the wedding. Hospital gossip spreads fast. I bet. Lila came back to visit Ethan yesterday. She was furious, talking about how you humiliated her. She humiliated herself. The lawyer was with her again. They were discussing accelerating their timeline, said you're becoming unpredictable. Good. Rob, I want them nervous. Nervous people make mistakes. Be careful. They're dangerous. So am I. I spent the next week conducting surveillance. Old school detective work. Ethan had patterns. Lunch every Tuesday with Damian at a bistro downtown. I photographed them, followed them afterward to Damian's office. More photos. Chloe met with Carlton Sheffield at his law firm. I documented it. License plates, times, dates. I built a timeline, a map of their conspiracy. Every piece of evidence meticulously recorded. Bill called Friday morning. I found something on Damian. He's got a sealed juvenile record. I couldn't crack it, but I know someone who can. Do it. Also, Damien's been buying property under shell companies, multiple LLCs, dozens of them, some with your son's signature on the incorporation papers. They're setting up the infrastructure. Yeah, once they have your money, it flows through these entities, gets cleaned, comes out legitimate on the other side. Can we trace it? Some of it. But they're smart, used multiple jurisdictions, offshore accounts. This took planning. How long would you estimate? Year, maybe more. This isn't opportunistic. This is calculated. A year. While I'd been trusting them, supporting them, loving them. Bill, I need you to do something. Name it. Contact every business partner I have, every client. Tell them there's been a security concern. Lock down all my accounts, change passwords, implement two-factor authentication on everything. That's going to tip them off that you know. I want them tipped off. I want them panicking. You're sure about this? Completely. He did it. By Monday, every account I had was locked down tighter than a federal prison. Ethan started calling. I didn't answer. Chloe left voicemails. I deleted them. Carlton Sheffield sent a formal letter. Legal threats. Claims of elder abuse, self-endangerment, mental incompetence, demanding I submit to evaluation. I had my own lawyer draft a response. Short version, go to hell. The pressure built. They knew I knew. The question was what they'd do about it. The answer came Wednesday night. I was alone at the office, lights low, files spread like a second skin across the desk. Work had a way of keeping panic at bay. Numbers, logs, clients, a grind of tasks that required nothing more than attention and an even temper. Tonight, attention was all I had. My eyes skimmed over contracts and employee rosters, but the edges of the words blurred into the present like shorelines fading in fog. I heard footsteps in the hallway before I saw them, heavy, multiple, and wrong for this hour. The building was supposed to be locked after 8. The janitor's rounds, a late client, a contractor. None of those accounted for the cadence, the purpose that lived in these steps. I pulled up the security feed on my monitor. 4 windows tiled the screen, each a still life of my office at different angles. 3 men appeared in the frame outside my door, backs turned as they moved with the sort of method the kind of people who made careers out of breaking and entering carried. Efficient, clinical, unhurried. They weren't Ethan. They weren't Damien. They were hired help. Stocky silhouettes in dark coats, faces obscured by caps and scarves, hands tucked into pockets like they were concealing tools of a trade I didn't want to be familiar with anymore. My first thought was not bravado. It was procedural. How do you stay alive in a world that suddenly wants something it can't ask for politely? The years as a private investigator trained me to watch the small things. The way a man grips a doorknob, the tempo of his breathing, the way a team signals without speaking. These men moved like a unit, checking doors, testing handles, their attention drawn not to office plants or framed degrees, but to metal and wood, the thresholds that lead to everything I owned. I dialed 911 and kept my voice low, modular, giving the operator the address, the details, and an instinctive context. 3 intruders, commercial building, immediate. Then I called Alex. "How fast can you get to my office?" I said when he picked up. 10 minutes. What's happening? I'm about to have visitors. Unfriendly ones. Don't engage. I'm on my way. The men reached my door. In the feed, they hesitated, leaned forward, tried the handle, locked. One of them slipped something from his jacket into his hands, too small to see clearly on the grainy feed, but all the same the motion translated, lockpicks. The world has a way of going from abstract fear to very specific terror in the time it takes for a man to reach into his coat. I grabbed my keys and moved to the back exit. My office has 2 ways out, an indulgence I put in when I leased the space, because you always build redundancies in the life you expect to survive. It is the same instinct that taught me to never trust a single plan. I slipped into the stairwell and eased the door shut behind me, feeling the thin flutter of my pulse at the base of the throat. The door behind me banged open with a force I could almost feel through the concrete, slamming wood and angry voices riffling my nerves like a loose string. I descended 3 flights, the stairwell swallowing sound. The parking garage yawned beneath the building, concrete and fluorescent light echoing emptiness. My car sat where I had left it, a solitary silhouette beneath a halo of light. I slid into the driver's seat, the fabric cool against my palms. Turned the key. The engine coughed, threaded itself into life. Outside my rearview mirror, headlights split the darkness. Sudden, implacable. A van. Dark paint that drank the light around it, bearing down like a thing with teeth. It was coming fast. I reversed hard, the tires protesting on the slick concrete. The van exploded into view in the rear view, closing in fast. I spun the wheel, banking the car with practiced force, pointed myself at the exit. Floorboard, heart pounding, the kind of focus that compresses your world to a single point. Get out. The van swerved to follow, taut and merciless in pursuit. Downtown at night was an empty grid of ghosts, closed bars, shuttered shops, the occasional silhouette of a late-night worker in a reflective vest. I ran a red light, cut across an intersection where there should have been bodies and possibility. The van stayed close, its silhouette a dark promise of what follows someone who pushes back. These weren't amateurs. These weren't petty criminals hoping for a quick score. They traveled in coordination, watched with a preternatural patience. Someone had hired them with resources, with an appetite for escalation. I took a hard right into an alley, feeling the rubber squeal as the chassis protested. Inside my chest, my heart thumped like a fist on a drum. The van cruised past the alley mouth, engine a lazy growl. Its brake lights flared, an incandescent punctuation. Someone had just realized they'd lost me, or thought they had. They didn't know where I'd gone. For now, that was advantage enough. I sat in the dark and let the air move around me. The city sounded different from here, distant, as if the urban wind carried the world away from me. My phone buzzed. Alex. Where are you? Alley behind Market Street, 3 blocks west of the office. Stay there. He pulled up 5 minutes later in his SUV like a shadow obeying a command I'd whispered. The 2 of us sat in the quiet for a breath that had hours stitched into it. They're escalating, I said. Who were they? Alex asked, scanning the streetlights, eyes like lanterns catching every flinch of motion. Don't know. Hired muscle. Someone sent them. Your kids? Probably Damien, I said. This has his fingerprints all over it. Alex's jaw worked. For years, he'd been my first call, the man who could stop a panic with a single measure of competence and a lifetime's worth of discretion. He was the kind of soldier you trust with a secret and hope never to need again. He read me like a ledger and didn't blink. We drove, windows up and low, to the hum of the empty street. Alex took a complicated route, checking mirrors every few blocks with the same professional suspicion he had always worn casually. Where to? He asked at last. Safe house. I know a place. The safe house was modest and practical, a rental I kept in cash under a different identity for exactly the sort of moment that now pounded at my ribs. Small, neat, 1 bedroom, with the kind of quiet that suggests you can hide a life for a night or a decade. It smelled faintly of lemon oil and old paper, a domesticity that felt almost perversely wholesome for my life of shadows. Inside, Alex checked doors and windows while I made coffee on a small burner, the steam an ordinary act that anchored me. The room had no pictures of family, no artifacts that would betray me if the house were searched. That was deliberate. The fewer ties you leave behind in a refuge, the fewer trails you create. This is not about heroics, it's about survival. We sat at the small kitchen table like conspirators plotting a heist, but the object we were after wasn't money. It was the truth. Alex folded his hands and looked at me. They're trying to scare you, he said. They're succeeding, I admitted. What's your play? I need to draw them out. All of them. Together. Where I have control. How? That part's tricky. I looked at him, the outline of a man who could be dangerous when pushed. I have an idea, but I need your help. He smiled then, small and feral. I'm listening. I laid out what I had in my head, not a blow-by-blow of violence or a sequence of criminal acts, but a framework. We would create a situation that forced their hand, steered them into the open where haste and overconfidence would be their undoing. We would use cameras and witnesses, legal muscle, and the kind of public setting that exposed liars in daylight. We would not set traps that could get us thrown in prison. We'd set up a stage where the truth, captured on record and corroborated by neutral third parties, would be unstoppable. The plan was risky. It required patience and timing. It required that I be willing to step into a place where I would look vulnerable enough to be tempting, but not enough to be destroyed. It would allow me to turn their aggression into evidence. It would allow me to fold their deception back into their faces. It would be satisfying in the way revenge that hinges on exposing cowardice always is. Quiet, inevitable, merciless. Alex listened and occasionally adjusted the edges, offering logistical tweaks. A reliable photographer who wouldn't ask questions, a public venue nobody could easily control, a legal contingency we could call if the law tried to be used against us. He mentioned Bill, my head of operations, and suggested we loop him in at dawn. You want muscle? He said. You want intelligence? Bill can do both without asking for a medal. We both knew the risk. If the hired men were linked to a real criminal firm rather than a desperate friend with too much money and not enough conscience, we could find ourselves in a theater of losing. But you never win without a chance to play. The alternative was surrender. Walking into a conservatorship hearing with no evidence and no dignity, while 2 generations of lies shifted the fruits of a lifetime into foreign hands. The thought of that, of being reduced to an elderly caricature while my children divested me of everything, stoked a dangerous, cleansing fire. I could plan, I could bait, I could wait. And being the hunter for once, instead of the hunted, felt right in a way that had nothing to do with vengeance and everything to do with survival. We finished a quiet, fast meal, coffee, toast, the kind of fare that felt like armor when you needed steady hands and clear thinking, and mapped out the next 24 hours. Bill would start trawling financial records again at first light. Alex would reach out to a photographer and a contact inside the city's civil courts who owed him a favor, and I would make the call I had been putting off since that voicemail at 2 a.m. A call to a lawyer who wouldn't blink at the notion of assembling everything we needed, fast and legally sound. We sat in the dimness as the sky outside hinting toward morning, the city making its first reluctant noises. The safe house held our plans like a taut net. Outside, the van had not yet returned. Inside, a new rhythm set in, the careful measurement of what had to be done, the inventory of risk versus reward, the slow polishing of an old instinct that had kept me alive. To watch, to wait, to strike only when the advantage was undeniable. At some point in the night, I thought about the men who had come for me. I thought about their employers, the unseen hands that had cut the checks, the conversations in which someone with less conscience than sense had decided to test me. I thought about Ethan, who slept somewhere in a hospital bed under sedation, and about Chloe, who had once crawled into my lap after a nightmare and wanted me to make the world right. I thought of Lila on the phone at 2 a.m., her voice a thread of urgent performance. The thought of them planning my displacement had a cold, mechanical quality to it, dividing assets, accounting for daily needs, an inventory of a man's life as if he were a ledger to be balanced. That image made a sound in me like a key turning. We planned to move tomorrow. Dawn would bring other people to light, and with them, a way to unmask, step by step, everything they'd built. We would not be violent. That would invite consequences we could not control. Instead, we'd be surgical, evidence in plain sight, witnesses who could not be bought on the spur of the moment, and legal counsel whose job was to translate the chaos into something a court might understand. When I finally lay down, sleep came sparingly. My head buzzed with contingency plans. I thought of Sarah at the hospital who'd warned me, of the grit in her face and the raw truth she'd given me without an eye for reward. I thought of the staff who had been unknowingly complicit and those who had looked away. In the thin, stitched hours before sunrise, I tried to catalog allies and foes, names, numbers, likely loyalties. The old instincts that served a private eye, pattern recognition, cold curiosity, a hunger for the seams in lies, came front and center. I let them steer me until the light finally slid through the edges of the curtains and morning called the city awake. When the alarm on my phone cut into my half-sleep, I was already moving. The plan we had sketched in the kitchen of the safe house felt now less theoretical and more inevitable. Bill called within 15 minutes, voice low but brisk, a trove of new entries in Damian Reed's accounts, wiring patterns that made the skin on my neck prickle. Alex texted a time for midday and a place that would put the whole cast in a crowded room where cameras, witnesses, and legal counsel could do their work without the shadow of a back alley. We set the stage with care. No trap, no unlawful entrapment. Just a situation that made lying inconvenient and exposure unavoidable. I would wear the guise of confusion and vulnerability, the hat of the man they expected to fold. They would come in believing they were ready to finish the job they had started at the hospital. When they stepped into the light, they would bring their own evidence, their voices, their timing, their arrogance. We would collect it, corroborate it, and then present it where it mattered. The work ahead would be careful and the cost of error high, but where they had used fear as a weapon, I would use truth as a blade. I would make them show themselves in full color, and once they did, there would be nowhere left for their lies to hide. I called Ethan the next morning. "Dad, Jesus, where have you been? We've been worried sick. I need to talk to you, all of you, family meeting. About what? About everything, about the truth, about what happens next." Silence. Then, when? Saturday, noon, the Riverside Hotel, same place as the wedding. I'll rent the smaller conference room. Why there? Neutral ground, public, safe for everyone. Dad, if this is about the conservatorship, it's about honesty, Ethan. Come or don't. Your choice. I hung up. Bill worked with me to set up the room. We installed hidden cameras, audio recorders, the works. Everything legal, documented, admissible. Saturday arrived. I got there early. The conference room overlooked the river. Windows on 3 sides. One door. Perfect. They came together. Ethan and Lila, Chloe and her boyfriend, Damian Reed, Carlton Sheffield, all of them, just like I'd hoped. "Thanks for coming," I said. "What's this about, Dad?" Chloe asked. "Sit, please." They did. Warily. Carlton Sheffield kept his briefcase on his lap. Damian slouched in his chair, trying to look unconcerned. I stood, looked at each of them. "I want to tell you a story about a man who worked his whole life, who built a business from nothing, who raised 2 children alone after their mother died, who sacrificed everything to give them opportunities he never had." "Dad!" Ethan started. "I'm not finished. This man loved his children, trusted them, believed in them, and they repaid him by planning to steal everything he'd ever earned, to have him declared incompetent, to rob him of his dignity, his autonomy, and his future." "That's not true," Lila said. "Isn't it?" I pulled out a folder, started laying down photographs on the table. "You and Carlton at the hospital, discussing sedating my son to create a medical emergency. You and Damian at his office, going over forged property documents. Chloe, you and Carlton at his law firm, strategizing about my mental health evaluation." Chloe's face went pale. "You hired men to break into my office, to intimidate me, possibly to harm me, all because I wouldn't just hand over the keys to my life." "You're paranoid," Carlton Sheffield said. "This is exactly why." I'm documented, counselor. Every conversation, every transaction, every conspiracy. It's all recorded, time-stamped, admissible. Ethan stood up. Dad, you don't understand. What don't I understand? That you're broke? That you owe money to people who scare you? That you thought stealing from me was easier than earning your own way? You don't know what it's like, Ethan shouted. Do you have any idea how hard it is to be your son? To live up to your standards? To hear about how you built everything yourself and we should too? So you decided to tear me down instead. We decided to take what should have been ours. There it was. The truth. Raw. Ugly. Chloe started crying, real tears this time. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't want it to go this far. But you let it. You helped plan it. You introduced Ethan to Damien. You're the architect, Chloe. Bill found all of it. Damien finally spoke. This is ridiculous. You can't prove anything. Can I? I pulled out my phone, played an audio recording. Damien and Ethan at lunch discussing my accounts, talking about timing, about how to move the money once they had control. Damien's cocky expression cracked. I have video, audio, financial records. I have testimony from Sarah, the nurse you bribed. I have correspondence between you and Carlton about fabricating evidence of my incompetence. Carlton Sheffield stood. This meeting is over. Anything you've obtained illegally is admissible under private investigator statutes, which I still hold a license for. I know the law, counselor. Probably better than you do. You can't do this, Lila said. We're your family. You stopped being my family when you tried to destroy me. So what now? Ethan asked. You turn us in? Send us to jail? No, I do something worse. They waited. I ruin you, socially, professionally, financially. I make sure everyone you know, everyone you work with, everyone you ever meet, knows exactly what you tried to do. That's insane, Chloe whispered. That's justice. You wanted to humiliate me, to strip away my credibility. Now I do the same to you. I pulled out another folder, handed copies around the table. These are going to every member of our extended family, every friend, every business associate. Detailed documentation of your conspiracy, photos, audio, financial records, everything. You can't, Ethan said. I already started. Check your email. They pulled out phones. The color drained from their faces. I've also filed formal complaints with the state bar against Carlton. Submitted evidence of your shell companies and money laundering to the IRS, Damien. And I've sent comprehensive documentation to every employer, every social connection, every person who matters in your lives. You're destroying us, Chloe said. You tried to destroy me first. You just failed. Lila stood. We'll sue you for defamation. Truth is an absolute defense. Everything I'm sharing is documented fact. Sue away. Carlton Sheffield was already packing his briefcase. I'm advising you all to leave. Now. Say nothing further. Good advice, I said. Take it. They filed out. Ethan looked back once. I can't believe you do this. Believe it. And Ethan, don't ever contact me again. None of you. The door closed. I stood alone in the conference room, looked out at the river, felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction. Just cold, hard certainty. They'd made their choice. Now they lived with the consequences. The next week was chaos. For them, not me. Bill monitored the situation. Carlton Sheffield got suspended by the state bar pending investigation. Damien Reed's real estate company got raided by federal agents. The IRS didn't mess around with shell company fraud. Ethan and Lila separated. Social pressure, financial pressure, the weight of exposure. Their friends abandoned them. Ethan lost his marketing job when his company found out about the conspiracy. Chloe called me once, begging for mercy. I hung up. I felt no guilt. They'd planned to leave me with nothing. Now they understood how that felt. Sarah called to check on me. I heard what happened. Are you okay? I'm fine. Rob, they're your kids. I know what they did was terrible, but But nothing. They made their choice. Actions have consequences. I get that. I just worry about you, about whether this is eating you up inside. It's not. I sleep fine. That wasn't entirely true. I did think about them sometimes, late at night. Wondered if I could have done something different. Been a better father. Seen the warning signs. But then I remembered the hospital, the wedding, the men in my office, the systematic, calculated cruelty of their plan, and I stopped wondering. Alex met me for coffee a month later. How's it going? Good. Quiet. The kids? Haven't heard from them. That's how I want it. Damien took a plea deal. 5 years, probably serve 3. Your son's lucky he didn't get charged 2. Small mercies. You did what you had to do, Rob. I know. But Alex studied my face. You sure about that? They tried to take everything. My business, my home, my dignity. They would have left me in a facility somewhere, drugged and helpless while they spent my money. You think I should have let that slide? No, but I think you're human, and human beings struggle with hurting their kids, even when their kids hurt them first. They're not my kids anymore. Alex didn't push. Smart man. I went back to work. My security consulting business actually grew. Turns out, having a reputation as someone who doesn't get pushed around attracts a certain clientele. People who needed protection, who needed investigations, who needed someone ruthless enough to fight back. I hired more staff, expanded, moved to a bigger office. The business thrived. I thrived. But sometimes, late at night, I'd look at that photo I'd put in the drawer. Ethan and Chloe at Disney World, smiling. I still didn't take it out, but I didn't throw it away either. 6 months after the conference room meeting, I was leaving my office building when I saw Ethan. He looked different, thinner, older, standing on the sidewalk like he'd been waiting. Dad. I kept walking. He followed. Dad, please, just 5 minutes. No. I need to tell you something. I don't care. He grabbed my arm. I stopped, looked at his hand. He let go. I'm sorry, he said. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you hate me, but I need to say it. I'm sorry. Noted. Lila and I are divorced. I lost everything. My job, my friends, my reputation. I'm living in a studio apartment and working retail. I know you think I deserve it. I do. You're probably right. But Dad, I was weak. I let her manipulate me. I let Damien manipulate me. I made terrible choices because I was scared and stupid and desperate. That's not an excuse. I know. It's an explanation. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did, what I tried to do, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better. I looked at him. Really looked. He meant it. The remorse was genuine. Good luck with that. I walked away. He called after me. I loved you, Dad. I still do. I know I destroyed that, but it was real. It is real. I didn't turn around, didn't respond, just kept walking, because love without trust means nothing, and trust, once shattered, doesn't heal. A year after everything exploded, I sold the security consulting business, got a fair price, good deal for both sides. I'd turned 60, decided it was time to step back, do something different. I bought a small cabin upstate, lake property, quiet, peaceful. Bill came to visit once. We sat on the deck, drinking beer, watching the sunset. You happy? He asked. Getting there. Hear from your kids? No. Think you ever will? Don't know. Don't think about it much. That's probably healthy. We sat in silence for a while. You did the right thing, Rob. Protecting yourself. I know. But. No but. They made their choice, I made mine. We all live with consequences. Bill finished his beer. You're a hard man. I'm a realistic man. They tried to destroy me. I stopped them. End of story. But it wasn't the end. Not quite. 3 months later, Chloe showed up at the cabin. I was splitting wood when I saw her car pull up the dirt road. Old sedan, dented. Nothing like the luxury vehicle she'd driven before. She got out slowly, cautiously, like approaching a wild animal. "Dad." I set down the axe. "How did you find me?" "It wasn't easy. I hired someone. Cost most of my savings." "Why?" "Because I needed to see you, to try to explain." "There's nothing to explain. Please, just listen. Then I'll leave. I promise." I didn't invite her inside, didn't offer her anything. Just stood there, arms crossed. She talked about how Damien had approached her 2 years ago, about how he'd convinced her I was holding them back, about how he'd presented the whole thing as justice, not theft, about how she'd gotten caught up in the excitement, the planning, the fantasy of wealth without work. "I was an idiot," she said, "worse than an idiot. I was cruel. I betrayed you in the worst possible way, and I know you'll never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I needed you to know that I wake up every day regretting it, that I understand what I destroyed." "You're right. You destroyed it." "I know." "You're also right that I won't forgive you." She nodded, tears running down her face. "I expected that." "Good." She turned to leave, got to her car, looked back. "For what it's worth, Dad, you taught us to be strong, independent, to fight for ourselves. I just fought against the wrong person. I'm sorry." She drove away. I went back to splitting wood, worked until dark, until my muscles ached and my mind went quiet. That night, I pulled out the photo. Disney World. Happy faces. I looked at it for a long time, then I put it back in the drawer. Some things break and don't get fixed. That's just reality. I lived alone for 2 years. Sarah visited occasionally. So did Bill. Alex stopped by when he was in the area, but mostly, I was alone, by choice. The anger had faded. What replaced it was something harder to define. Not quite peace, not quite satisfaction, maybe just acceptance. They'd tried to take everything. I'd stopped them. The cost was my family. Was it worth it? Some days I thought yes. Some days I wasn't sure. But I never regretted the choice. Because the alternative was being a victim, being destroyed by the people who were supposed to love me most. I'd chosen to fight back, to protect myself, to demand justice. That wasn't wrong. It was survival. One afternoon, I was fishing off the dock when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Harlan." "Mr. Harlan, this is Detective Wilson, State Police. I'm calling about Damien Reed." My stomach tightened. "What about him?" "He was released from prison last week. Early parole. We're conducting routine notification of victims and witnesses." "Understood." "Sir, I'm also calling because Reed made some statements upon release. Threats against you specifically. We take these seriously. I wanted to make you aware." "What kind of threats?" "He blames you for his incarceration. Said you'd pay for what you did. Standard angry ex-con talk, but we wanted to warn you." "I appreciate that." "You should consider additional security measures. File a restraining order if necessary." "I'll think about it." I hung up, looked out at the lake. Calm water, blue sky, Damien Reed, the architect behind my children's betrayal. Now out, and angry. I called Alex. "We might have a problem," I explained. Alex listened. Then, "Want me to come up?" "Not yet, but be ready." Always. 3 days later, Damien showed up. I saw him coming from a mile away, literally. My cabin sat on elevated ground overlooking the road. His car was loud, poorly maintained, obvious. I called 911, then I called Alex. Then I went inside, locked the doors, and waited. Damien pulled up, got out, walked toward the cabin like he owned it. I opened the door before he could knock, stood in the doorway, blocked his entry. "Reed." "Harlan." He smiled. Ugly smile. "Nice place. Quiet. Isolated." "What do you want?" "To talk. We have nothing to discuss. I spent 3 years in prison because of you." You spent 3 years in prison because you committed crimes. Semantics. He stepped closer. I didn't move. You destroyed my life, my business, everything. You tried to destroy mine first, and I should have succeeded. Would have, if you hadn't been so paranoid. If I hadn't been paying attention, you mean. Your kids hated you, still do. You know that. Don't care. You should, because they're broke, desperate, Chloe especially, lost everything. She blames you. She should blame herself. Maybe, but blame doesn't pay bills, and desperate people do desperate things. I heard sirens in the distance. Damien heard them too. His expression shifted. This isn't over, he said. It was over a year ago. You're just too stupid to realize it. We'll see. He left, drove away fast. The police arrived 5 minutes later. I gave them a statement. They said they'd increase patrols in the area, monitor Damien's movements. I thanked them, went back inside. That night, I sat on the deck with a glass of whiskey. Stars overhead. Quiet. I thought about Ethan's apology, Chloe's tears, Damien's threats. Thought about the life I'd built, the life I'd defended, the life I now lived alone. Was it worth it? The question didn't matter, because I'd made my choice, and I'd make it again. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing alone. That's the cost. But the alternative is worse. The alternative is letting them win. Letting them take everything while you smile and pretend it's love. That's not love. That's surrender. And I don't surrender. Not to my children. Not to their accomplices. Not to anyone. I finished my whiskey, went inside, locked the doors. Tomorrow I'd call Alex, set up better security, maybe install cameras. But tonight, I'd sleep fine. Because I knew something they didn't. I'd survived their worst, and I was still standing. That made me the winner, not them. The house was quiet, the lake was calm, and I was exactly where I wanted to be, alone, safe, free, on my own terms. They'd tried to take that from me, failed. Now they lived with the consequences, and I lived with my choices. That was justice, hard, cold, real, but justice nonetheless. And sometimes, justice is all you get. I was okay with that.